The night began like any other for Officer Daniels, patrolling the quiet suburban streets with his partner, Officer Lee, the hum of the squad car blending with the occasional distant bark of a dog or the faint whir of a lawnmower long since abandoned. They had received a call about a disturbance at an old abandoned house on the edge of town, one that had been empty for decades, yet somehow still drew curiosity, trespassers, and occasional reports of strange noises. As they approached the house, its silhouette loomed against the moonlit sky, paint peeling in jagged strips, windows like dark, watchful eyes, and a front door that sagged ominously on rusted hinges. Daniels flicked on his Bodycam, a routine precaution, thinking little of it beyond standard procedure. The first thing that struck them was the smell, an acrid mix of rot, wet soil, and something metallic, almost coppery, that made Daniel's stomach churn. The floorboards groaned under their boots as they entered, the flashlight beams cutting through thick darkness that seemed almost alive, swallowing the edges of the room in shifting shadows. The air inside was unnaturally cold, a chill that seemed to seep into their bones despite the mild night outside, and with each step the sense of unease grew heavier, pressing down on them like a weight they couldn't shrug off. They called out, their voices echoing in the cavernous space, but only the response of silence answered, though it was a silence that felt wrong, too deep, too anticipatory, like it was listening back. As they moved further in, the flashlight picked out a staircase leading down into a basement that shouldn't have existed, at least according to the blueprints Daniels had seen of the house. The steps were warped, slick with something that glistened in the beam, and the smell intensified, a pungent, iron-tinged stench that made Lee gag. Daniels signaled for caution, and together they descended, the Bodycam capturing everything, the peeling wallpaper, the scattered debris, and the shadows that clung unnaturally to the corners. At the bottom, they found a room that was entirely out of place, walls covered in strange symbols etched deep into the plaster, a floor littered with candles long extinguished but with wax still warm to the touch, as if someone or something had been there very recently. The camera caught every detail, but more disturbing were the impressions in the dust, footprints that didn't match any human size or gait they had ever seen, small and clawed, winding around in patterns that made no logical sense. Then the whispers started, soft, almost imperceptible, seeming to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, curling around their eardrums, low and sibilant, speaking words in a language neither of them recognized, yet somehow it felt like it was inside their heads as much as it was in the room. Daniels swept the flashlight around frantically, catching fleeting movements at the edge of the beam, shadows that recoiled as if avoiding the light, leaving only darkness behind. And then the scratching started, slow at first, like fingernails on wood, circling the walls, moving closer, sometimes stopping abruptly, leaving an oppressive silence before starting again. Lee's breathing became rapid, panicked, his hand gripping his flashlight so tight that the knuckles whitened, and Daniels tried to reassure him, though his own voice trembled. Suddenly, the Bodycam caught something that neither could see with their eyes, a distortion in the air itself, shimmering like heat on asphalt, forming a figure that was humanoid in shape but grotesquely elongated, limbs too long, fingers tapering to sharp points, its head tilting at impossible angles as though examining them. The whispers crescendoed into a guttural cacophony that seemed to rattle their skulls, and the figure advanced, sliding rather than walking, moving with a speed that defied logic, yet making no sound of footfalls. Daniels aimed his flashlight directly at it, and for a moment the room froze, the shadows retreating slightly, revealing the figure's face, or what could be called a face, featureless, smooth, but with deep hollows where eyes should have been, a mouth that opened impossibly wide before closing with a sickening snap. Lee screamed, stumbling backward into a wall, and the air shifted violently, throwing them both off balance, and Daniels saw movement in the corners of the room, hundreds of tiny skittering forms, almost like insects, yet unnervingly human in their posture, crawling along the walls and ceiling, their faces twisted in silent agony, reaching, clawing, screaming silently. The Bodycam captured it all, but it was almost as if the camera itself reacted, the image flickering, colours bleeding, distorting, giving the scene an unnatural, nightmarish quality. Daniels fumbled for his radio to call for backup, but the device emitted only static, interspersed with faint, distorted laughter that echoed too clearly for it to be random interference. In that instant, the figure lunged, passing through the space where Lee had fallen, and yet Lee remained, frozen in place, staring at something only he could see, mouth moving silently, as if repeating the incomprehensible words whispered from the walls. The skittering forms multiplied, their numbers swelling impossibly, filling the room with a writhing, crawling mass that pressed against them from all sides, and Daniels felt a searing pain in his head, images flooding his mind, faces, screams, shadows, fire, water, darkness, all in a terrifying jumble that left him gasping for breath. He tried to reach Lee, tried to drag him out, but the moment his hands touched his partner, Lee's body went rigid, limbs bending unnaturally, head twisting toward him, eyes, or the hollows where they should have been, filling with darkness that seemed to absorb the light itself. Daniels stumbled backward, tripping over debris, the shadows closing in, and he felt the floor vanish beneath him, plunging him into a void that was cold and wet, pressing against his skin like a living thing, dragging him down, down into an infinite darkness. The Bodycam recorded this descent, though Daniels could no longer comprehend what he saw, shapes and forms shifting, mutating, whispering, screaming, crawling, slithering into him from all sides. And then, abruptly, he was back in the room, or a room like it, but the air was thick, suffocating, and the smell had intensified into something overwhelmingly foul, coppery, iron-rich, rotten yet alive, and the shadows were no longer at the edges, but everywhere, thick, pulsing, moving with intent, and Daniels realized he could no longer move his legs. The humanoid figure approached again, tilting its head, and this time Daniels saw in its hollow eyes visions of himself, trapped, broken, screaming, an eternity of torment reflected back at him, and a voice, low, resonant, deep inside his mind, told him he had no choice, that no one would see this footage, that the camera, which had faithfully recorded every detail until now, would betray him, capture him, and yet be ignored, unseen, unviewed, as though the world itself would pretend it never existed. Panic surged, and he screamed, his own voice swallowed immediately by the darkness, his hands scrabbling at the walls, but the walls were no longer solid. They seemed to breathe, pulse, contract, expand, reaching for him, wrapping him in cold, wet shadows that smelled of iron and decay. Daniels felt his consciousness stretching, tearing, fracturing, caught between the room and the void, the whispers becoming voices, the crawling forms becoming hands, mouths, eyes, mouths that opened on walls and floors and ceilings, devouring light, devouring him, devouring reality itself. In a fleeting moment of clarity, he realized the Bodycam was still recording, its red light blinking steadily, yet what it recorded no longer matched his perception. Images twisted, faces of the dead appearing in the shadows, eyes that weren't human watching, mouths moving in silent screams, and he understood that this house, this room, this darkness, was alive in a way beyond comprehension, feeding not on flesh, but on fear, memory, identity, the very essence of those who dared enter. Daniel's mind fractured further as the humanoid figure leaned closer, and the whispers coalesced into words he understood, though they made no sense. You record, we consume, you see, we are seen, and yet none shall know. The crawling form surged at him, hundreds of hands pulling at his arms, his legs, his face, into the wall, into the shadows, into the wet iron-scented darkness that promised eternity. In his final moments of awareness, Daniel saw Lee's face, twisted, hollow, a reflection of the thing before him, mouthing silent apologies, eyes filled with the same black void, and then everything went silent. When the footage was later discovered, stored on the officer's personal cloud, no one could explain how the camera still worked, how the data remained intact, or why it evoked such profound terror in anyone who watched it. The video itself was normal at first glance, Daniels and Lee entering the house, casual movements, routine conversation, ordinary patrol. But as the recording progressed, subtle anomalies appeared, shadows that moved contrary to the light, reflections in broken glass that didn't match reality, whispers too faint to catch on standard audio, and glimpses of figures that vanished when directly looked at. Viewers reported feeling watched, nausea, sudden drops in temperature, and an overwhelming sense of dread that no rational explanation could satisfy. Some who attempted to enhance the audio reported hearing Daniel's voice screaming in ways impossible for his mouth to produce, echoing across layers of static and distortion, merging with voices that were not human, voices that spoke of hunger, eternity, and the inevitability of the house claiming all who dared enter. Attempts to trace the location revealed the property as a vacant lot with no remaining structure, though municipal records confirmed a house once stood there decades ago, long demolished. Experts in paranormal phenomena, skeptics alike, and cybersecurity analysts alike could not agree on the source of the terror. Yet all who viewed the footage reported dreams of being pulled into darkness, of hands clawing from shadows, of whispers filling every corner of their consciousness. The Bodycam itself was eventually locked away in evidence, yet disappeared mysteriously from secure storage within weeks, its existence becoming a whispered rumor among officers, a cautionary tale never officially acknowledged, and those who claimed to have seen it never spoke of it openly again, for the recording seemed to exact a toll on the mind itself. The few fragments leaked online, grainy images, distorted audio, caused viral panic, with viewers reporting sudden chills, fainting, and a sensation of something unseen breathing down their necks. And so the footage, the cursed recording, exists in a liminal space between reality and nightmare, a testament to something inhuman, a hunger that consumes not bodies but perception, and though many have tried to recreate or analyze it, none have succeeded. And the message is clear: some things recorded are never meant to be seen, some cameras capture more than light, and some houses, even when gone, continue to watch, to whisper, to feed, forever waiting for the next unwitting eyes, the next Bodycam turned on in curiosity, the next soul to step too close to darkness that should never be disturbed, because once you see it, even through a lens, the house, the shadows, the whispers, they see you back, and you are never truly alone again.